button. Looks like I think everybody in here right now is in the bold room. Let's chat for a second about bold.
I'm not in bold, but
Good morning.
Well, you're still bold, and you're gonna in the next 5 minutes, you're gonna feel like you were in bold yesterday.
under the table taking bold.
What's that?
I said I've been under the table taking bold. I kind of asked Chris Mans like what you guys do every week, and then I just try to copy that.
I think that's a great idea. I think that's a fantastic idea. Okay, somebody tell me a little bit about what they are learning or experiencing or thinking as a result of being in the bold room.
I will jump right in with changing your mindset. I love the bold lines that are in the book. One of my favorite is, I'll have to come back to that because I have my book in front of me right quick. Some of the other things is just changing your mindset. The whole energy within the room was amazing. People come in with this enormous energy. And one of the things that we're learning is how to change your mindset. So first couple of sessions is all about mindset. And yesterday's activity was gratitude. So calling your own clients to say, hey, thanks for letting me serve you. How can I serve you now? Finding out what's going on with the family, not making it a call to generate a lead or to generate any kind of real estate discussion, but actually going in and saying, hey, I'm really thinking about you. I'm sincere with my gratitude towards you. So that was an awesome exercise. Before we went on break, she had us text somebody to say, hey, how you doing? I really appreciate that you let me assist you. I really appreciate you having you in my life. Most people said different things, but it's mostly gratitude towards them having an experience with the person that called. And so when we left, she said, well, how many people received something? So before I could walk out the door to actually make the phone calls, I had text come back saying, oh, that is so sweet. Thanks for thinking about me. So it was a win-win on both sides. So I don't want to hog the floor.
I love that. I think there's a very specific difference in the two things you just described, right? One is you approaching the person for a lead or for a deal or for something for you, and then there is also something completely different about you not having that in mind, and instead you just need to be listening for what the listener wants, right? What's their energy today, right? Do they seem happy, sad, complacent, upset? Who knows? I mean, anything could have happened in their life, right?
Mhm.
Certainly if you call with the intention of talking about real estate and they just tell you somebody they know passed away, don't talk about real estate, right? Use common sense and show some compassion. And we've talked about that a lot from a calling perspective. If you're thinking about them, right, and their needs and their desires and their goals, and the fact that if left to their own devices, go out into the community and try to find a realtor, they will find a mediocre realtor at best, right? And because that you're a great person of integrity, that you care more than the average realtor, that you're going to do more research than the average realtor, right? Because you are going to pay more attention to the deadlines than the average realtor, all that kind of stuff, then it's your responsibility to make that call, to serve them, right? Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Who else?
Awesome. Just to piggyback off that, a couple of big takeaways from me that really resonated, because the bold is basically allowing me to grow within myself, to kind of not reinvent the wheel, just to change the way that I approach my clients, my family. I know it's going to make me a better me. So gratitude is the magnet that pulls abundance into your world. Was something that stood out. And one of the other ones was limit your interaction with those that are trying to hold you back. So my focus is not totally shun them out or push them away from your life. Just limit that amount of time. Say, hey, how are you? How's it going? Oh, if they come at you, oh, you're with that thing, or you're doing that thing, to cut that conversation short, because if they're not on the same plane or train that you are for that road to success, then that you can still love them, but just put them behind you, because you've got a roadmap to success that's being put in place for you, and you can't let nobody play with your mind, because like you said, you got two parts of your mind, the conscious and the subconscious, and we don't want the subconscious to take over the conscious part of our mind, especially when we're initiating the positivity in ourselves by going through this bold. So I think that's awesome.
Man, I love every single thing you just said. I think it's exactly accurate. One thing that I would say is, like, for example, when you said the phrase, let's say your buddy says, "Oh, you're doing that thing." Dude, this is a real estate career. What are you referring to it as a thing for? You would refer to, like, oh, are you doing that thing, like, oh, you're doing like a juice detox or something? This is a career. Why are you talking about my career like that? Right? If they're really interested in supporting you, they would say, like, oh my gosh, I hear you're in real estate now. Tell me all about it. Are you having fun? Right? They would say something that is, hey, listen, I want to be a part of this. I want to experience it with you. Like, hey, you're part of the #1, real estate company in the world. I'm sure you're learning something incredible. Hey, teach me something.
Right.
Right. I mean, like, we need to get into that habit of offering that type of energy to those that we are hanging out with. Right. Like so this just popped into my mind. I don't know how relevant this is, but I had coffee yesterday morning with Henry. He's the assistant team leader in Alpharetta, and he's getting ready to move to Orlando and take a big opportunity down there where he's going to run 3 market centers. And I spent the whole time asking him questions because I wanted to hear about it. I wanted to encourage him, and I wanted to learn how I can help him. Right. I wanted to learn what he learned and what he's enjoying and what he's not enjoying. And he knows how to talk to people too. So he kept trying to ask me questions, and I gave him short answers, and I just wanted to ask him more questions. I didn't ask him to coffee to talk about myself. I asked him to coffee to talk about him. Y'all see what I'm saying? He'd be like, hey, so where did you grow up? I'm like, oh, I grew up near North Lake Mall. So what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, I didn't want to talk about me. I wanted to talk about him. Y'all follow that? Okay, who else? Candace, I'm coming to you in a second, but Jenny, tell me what you heard yesterday.
I'm right here.
Just a lot of the same what Anthony and Lorinda were talking about. Just going to be working on what the positivity and changing my mindset, affirmations. I did share that with some friends yesterday about the 1%. We got into talking about one lady, she's trying to get up earlier in the morning. And so I was telling her about the 1%, and she really liked that idea. So.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that. Anthony, you were the one that said I get up 1 minute earlier every day.
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh, man. I just love that. I think that is so cool, man. I think that is so cool. I don't know if I'm publicly ready to commit to that, but I think that is awesome. And it is exactly that. You have no idea, sir, what is happening inside your brain for your benefit when you do that.
And the focus is, I'm sorry, when I do get up that 1 minute early, it's like, yeah, I have a target time where I'm going to just flatten it out. And then I take my next percent to something else, be it my business, my health, my physical well-being. And then I start targeting that. So I'm consistent on my time frame. And so that my goal will be 5:45 is my target. So when I keep going back a minute, when I hit that 5:45, however many days that is for me to get to that point, now at 5:45, it's automatic. Now, what is the next thing that I'm going to do daily to make myself better 1%, and just keep going off of that and keep plugging away.
Wow. Y'all better watch out. Anthony's taking market share 1 second at a time, right? I mean, literally. That it is that type of commitment, sir, that the vast majority of people are unwilling to make. And Candace and I have actually talked a lot about this lately. And this is particularly relevant for a dual career agent, which is this is particularly relevant for a dual career agent, which is, what are you willing to sacrifice to get what you're telling me you want? Right? So, like, if you live exactly the way that you have chosen to live, then you now know what you get as a result, right? If you are unsatisfied with that for whatever reason, then you should ask yourself that question. If I want a different result, what am I willing to sacrifice to get there? Right? Okay. Jaleesa, we were just sharing a couple of things that we learned or internalized or heard in the bold room yesterday that were really meaningful to us. Is there anything you'd like to share?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I would like to share. Well, I just had it in front of me. Give me 1 second.
Just a real quick note, by the way, while we give her a second. Yesterday, I posted a link on the 2 WhatsApp chats, which is a link to add a PC calendar to your Google Calendar. Right? We all know, like, you can have, your work calendar, your not work calendar, the U.S. federal holidays, all that kind of stuff. You can add now a PC calendar to your calendar, and I can change things in the background and it'll just adjust on your calendar. It has all the links for all the individual sessions, like the GLG classes and that kind of stuff. So everyone, please do me a favor, add it to your calendar, test it out. Tell me if it's something that you find valuable. If you'd like me to make any adjustments to it, I'd be more than happy to. Okay. Ready, Jaleesa?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Okay, so yesterday, something that touched me was the limiting beliefs. I feel that we do limit ourselves a lot, whether we realize it or not, but we do limit our beliefs. And I feel like we definitely need to take into action what we believe and just go for it. Don't, stop telling ourselves what we can't do and what we don't have time for and those type of things. I'm really going to do more of, I'm going to stop the limited believing thing, because I talked about it with my kids yesterday and we went over the words that we shouldn't, use. And my daughter, she's 7, and she was saying, she was just reading them down to me, and she was like, so don't say this, say that. And I'm just like, yeah, we're going to practice that, just like how Tammy was telling us in the class yesterday. So I feel like that was something that could help and grow in my household, not with just me.
Yeah, I honestly got goosebumps right now just hearing you say that. I got to be honest with you. I think that's why Candace does what she does. That's why I do what I do.
Yes.
That is, thank you for sharing that. That is exactly the point, guys. Like, gosh, this organization and your peer group and what we're teaching you real estate is like this much of it, right? I mean, it can impact every space of your world, right? And generations to come, right? I don't know if they're, I'm going to tell a really quick bold story. They used to tell this in bold, but they haven't told it in a long time. So they said, and I think this is even more applicable around Thanksgiving. So, okay, let me see if I can remember all the details. All right, so this little girl is at Thanksgiving dinner with all of her family, right? And her mother's there, and her grandmother's there, and her great grandmother is there, and she is in the kitchen with her mother. And her mother, Candace, have you heard this before? Okay, and her mother is preparing the ham. Okay, and she notices that she cut off some of the ham and put it in the the container And the little girl says, why do you cut off part of the ham before you cook it? And the mother says, well, I do that because my mother always did that. And so the girl goes over to her grandmother, says, hey, grandmother, have you heard this, Lorinda? So she goes to you have, Jenny? She goes to the grandmother. I'm probably butchering it, but I'm going to stick to the point here. She goes to her grandmother, says, hey, grandma, what's the deal with the way you cook the ham? You cut it off first and then you stick it in the container and then you stick it in the oven. Why do you do that? It looks like you're wasting ham, right? I'm not actually sure why I do it. My mom always did it that way. So the little girl goes to her great grandma, who's at the Thanksgiving dinner thing, and says, grandma, you know, your daughter and her daughter, they do this weird thing with the ham. They cut it off first and then they stick it in the container and then they stick it in the oven. What's the deal with that? She says, oh, honey, I didn't have a pan that was big enough for the ham, you know, when I started doing this. And so I had to cut off part of the ham to stick it in the pan, right? So sometimes we just do things because we see other people doing it. And number one, we fail to ask what's the logic there. And secondly, like we just do it because like the kind of the authority figure, so to speak, in your world is doing it that way. So please understand, for those that have children or grandchildren or whoever is in your world, these delicate minds that are getting molded around you, right? They're listening to the words you use. They're listening to the way you speak about people. They're listening to the way you follow rules or don't follow rules. You see what I'm saying? I totally butchered that story, but do y'all get the point?
It was good. It was good.
It's okay, Bill. We get the point.
Okay. All right, good. All right, let's talk about actually let me do one more, because I know Ebony had a really cool experience in Bold yesterday. Would you like to share what you learned in the Bold room yesterday, Ebony?
Sure. Forgive me, I'm getting dressed and everything, but I had a lot of notes.
Well, let me just say one thing real fast. You chose to be here and listen rather than the person who's getting dressed that chose not to be here. So I want to just recognize that is getting 1% better every day, right? That is a commitment to your business. I'm glad you're here.
Oh, well, I'm glad to be here. I've taken Bowl a couple of times, but I definitely think that the biggest thing that I learned is more of when you're in a space of understanding, you can hear things 1,000 times, but you have to be willing to allow your mind to be open in order for the change to come. So I think that that was the biggest thing that, or one of the biggest things that I've got out of sitting in the class. But other things, give me a second. I'm just looking at my notes. I always love the affirmation and the gratitude. And it's more of just learning just how to do things differently and committing to what you're doing. Like I've heard Candace say it a lot as well, but the way that you start your day, it's going to control the trajectory of your day. So even just hearing again, getting up, making sure you're doing your affirmations so you can start in that positivity so you can kind of believe it. That's one of the things that, you know, is going to help me from this point moving forward. So it was a lot more nuggets, but it was more of a shift for me that did it.
Love that. I love that. You know, it's really about intentionality, right? You wake up and you say your affirmations, or you know, jot down things that you're grateful for and these kind of things. You are saying to yourself, the first thing that I need today is I need to control what enters into my world so that I can put myself on the right trajectory for the day. The alternative to that, by the way, is logging into your email and letting somebody else dictate the first thing that happens to you that day, or logging into Facebook and seeing somebody complain about this or that or whatever. And that's the way you start your day. Candace, it sounded like you wanted to share something.
I did. I wanted to say, you know, part of the experience for me is personal because I'm getting personal insights. part of the joy of Bold for me is listening to other people's insights, like what's happened with those of you who have spoken up this morning. And I sit there and I thought about Anthony and I thought, we all look at somebody and a year later they are a superstar and we wonder like, how did that happen to them and not for me? And it's because he's intentionally it's that simple. And I've heard Drew say this. Drew is like on fire right now. And he's like, real estate is simple. And I'm like, that's what we've been saying. It's just figuring the thing out that you want to do and doing it. And Anthony has figured out that all he has to do is just do 1% better every single day. And you watch next year. And I know I'm not just singling him out. He's the one who voiced it. There are those of you who are doing it as well. But you watch next year and you're going to know the people that actually got intentional about that 1% better every day. And the ones who have not are going to be wondering, well, they must be lucky, but it's not luck. It's just making that commitment. And it is that simple of 1%, getting up 1 minute earlier every day. It's that simple, making one more phone call every day. So it doesn't have to be complicated. And that was one of my insights was that I took it a different way, and it was that cognitive complexity. And she was saying we need to accept people as they are and not complicate the way we think about them because of how they're responding to a situation. But it's also, we tend to overcomplicate things. And so if we just keep it really simple and not, it's a way to navigate the overwhelm for new agents. There's a lot coming at you, but just keep it simple and just commit to being 1% better every day. And that's my soapbox. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. I very well said. Very well said. I just posted something in the announcements chat. It's a podcast episode by a guy named Naval, Naval. I love his thinking. He's just like next level, basically. And he has this is a particular episode about luck. And he suggested something that Candace basically suggested, which is luck, things appear like they're luck to those that are witnessing it. But for those that are in experiencing it, it's not luck. It is preparation mixed with getting out there, right? It talks about like, I might get lucky meeting a seller because I chatted with a ton of sellers and one of them raised their hand. You see what I'm saying? So we set ourselves up for luck. And luck, by the way, it doesn't give the receiver any credit, right? If Anthony has an awesome bold, it's not because he sat around and waited for it to all fall in his lap. It's because he went out there and he was super intentional, right? And then somebody that's not on this call might look at Anthony and say, oh, he just got lucky. But y'all know that that's not true, right? He's been waking up a minute earlier every day in an effort to make sure that he puts himself in the path of business. Cool. Thank you everyone for sharing. I really, really appreciate that. Like Candace, I get a lot out of being in the room, but I really get more from listening to y'all share your wisdom, right? And your perspectives. Thank you. Okay, let's talk for a second about the buyer consultation. Now, we won't have time to go through the entire buyer consultation today. There are lots of videos on that on the YouTube channel. I want to focus a little bit on some of the important scripts with respect to buyers today. Okay. The first thing that I want to chat with you about is a little off topic, but I just want to remind everybody that when you receive a referral, regardless of whether it is a referral that is appealing to you or the person is motivated or they aren't qualified or whatever it is, I don't care if they say, hey, here you're in business, here's somebody who is completely unqualified and won't want to do anything for 5 years. Okay, I want you to treat that exactly the same as a referral that's, hey, here's $1 million buyer. They already picked out their home. They just need you to write up the contract. Okay, when somebody makes the effort to introduce you to someone else, that person needs to be rewarded handsomely immediately. Now, I'm not talking about paying them off or bribing them or something. I'm talking about handsomely with respect to your emotions, right? So basically everything stops for 5 minutes and you call that person, or you write them a handwritten note, or both, and you just express your gratitude. Candace, I just want to thank you. I just got connected with Stephen. He said that you connected us, that you shared information with me, blah, blah, blah. You know, I just wanted to express my gratitude to you. There's a lot of real estate agents out there, and I just thank you so much for connecting me with him, right? This is a big deal for me and for my family, and the trust that you have in me to do a great job for Stephen is super, super important, and I'm not going to let you down. So I just wanted to let you know how much I appreciate that. Okay. Don't overlook this step, you guys. And do not reward them only when you get paid. They can't control whether you get paid or not. They've already done what they can control, which is make the introduction. So reward the person for what they can control, and then they will do more of it. Make sense? Now, I'm not talking about telling them, you know, going and buying them a $100 massage or something, right? You could buy them a little Starbucks card, or you could, you know, send them a little chocolate chip cookies or something like that. Or if you aren't prepared to make that type of investment, just call them and just come from the heart. Okay. So that is step number one. You want to identify, number one, where did each and every opportunity that I get, where did it come from?
And Bill, just a couple of caveats on that.
Yeah, please.
One, you can send somebody a gratitude text. We all did that in Bold yesterday. That's a powerful, powerful tool. And also, one of the things that Tammy said was that I loved was, because I have the same experience, one of her best referral sources has never done real estate with her. But it's a relationship she nurtured, and they send her referrals. They bought their home a long time ago and are staying in it, but they've sent her a lot of referrals. So don't look at everybody for their potential, but it's who they know, and look at them for themselves, first of all. But you can nurture those relationships in that way. And the gratitude is a great way to say thank somebody if you're on a little budget.
Love that. And just like Candace said, the closer you don't judge somebody's ability or willingness to share your information with them based on how close a relationship you have. There's actually a book called Give and Take written by Adam Grant, who's a psychology professor at Wharton. And he spoke at Family Union a couple years ago. And he says there's actually sometimes more power in what he called dormant contacts. So it's like the kind of friend that I had at the fraternity 20 years ago has sent me more referrals than my own mother has. Right? My mother sent me, I love her dearly, but she sent me one referral in 16 and a half years, and that that seller wanted to pay me 1% and didn't even hire me. Right? Probably because I told him no for the 1%. But your best friends might not be the ones that support your business at a high level that you expect. Okay, Jaleesa.
I'm sorry. I had a question about a referral. So earlier this year, someone referred me to a friend of theirs, and nothing really took place. But now that you're mentioning this, I remember that I did not thank her for the referral. So what can I do now, or is it too late?
It's never too late. I would give her a ring and just check in on her like a normal care call. And then in the course of that conversation, say, hey, I never did hear from Joe. Have you guys spoken lately? Thank you, again, thank you so much. You probably did thank them, to be honest. But just thank them again in the casual conversation. Just say, hey, thank you so much again for that. That really means a lot to me.
Okay.
Have you chatted with him lately? Don't call and say, hey, I realized that I did not apologize, or I did not thank you 6.5 months ago. Just thank him again, and they've probably already forgotten about it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And don't apologize for asking questions.
Okay.
Come on
Thanks.
out. Just ask whatever you want.
Okay.
Be bold.
I will.
Okay. All right, guys, let's talk about buyers for a second. One of the things that I think is really, really important for a buyer to understand as soon as humanly possible is two particular phrases that I would always say. And this was essentially, there's a little bit less of a pre-qualification prior to the buyer's consultation, in my opinion, right? Because as soon as I can, I just want to get belly to belly with them. I want to feel their energy. I want to see if I like their style. I want to see if they're fun to be around and all that stuff, right? So I would generally say, I would get on the phone when the referral came in or whenever the sign call came in or whatever. I'd mention one or two quick things and I'd book the appointment, or I'd book the appointment and then I'd say one or two quick things. Here are the two things. First is, just so you know, I'm ultimately compensated by the owner of the home that you pursue. So because of that, you don't have to think of me as a salesperson, right? I can play more of the role of the consultant, right? So if you like house A or house T, it doesn't make a difference to me. I'm going to support you and help you get the best terms and price for the home that makes the most sense for you and your family. Okay. Doesn't have anything to do with how I'm compensated or what brokerage anyone works for or any of that kind of thing. So ultimately, I'm compensated by the owner of the home that you pursue. So number one, you now, and don't assume that everyone understands this. A lot of people don't. You don't have to pay for my services. You get professional representation, and that person, me, can take you to any property that you want to pursue. New construction, foreclosure, resale, whatever. It doesn't make a difference.
Bill, can I run something by you?
Please.
Okay. So I've been hearing a lot of other agents say that what they're doing, especially in the market that buyers are in right now, even though buyers know they don't pay us, but on the GAR form where it selects if the seller, or if you aren't compensated by the seller, the buyer will pay you X amount. They're saying what they're doing now is putting in a dollar amount, whatever it is that you feel. Like, let's just say it's anywhere between $500 and $1,000. So in the event that, because some buyers you don't get anywhere with them for one reason or another, but they're compensated on the front end, and then they'll have whatever they were compensated on the front end deducted on the back end when the seller is paying for, when we're closing. So whereas
that's more of a retainer fee though, the way you're explaining it, right?
I didn't understand how they were explaining it. So I wanted to just bring it up because it's something that I wanted to kind of do, but I just wanted to make sure I got the right understanding on it.
Okay, good. That's actually a lot more complex nowadays than it used to be. So there's two separate topics. One is the retainer fee, which I got to be honest with you, I don't want to split hairs at the very beginning. I don't expect you to commit to working with me exclusively until you see how I'm going to work. And I don't want to have to defend a few $100s in order to get in front of you. So I would generally not even bother with that. Okay. This is my opinion. You can run your business differently if you want. Okay. But I've never done that before. The second thing is the buyer's brokerage agreement says kind of a two-part thing. It says the buyer will, or the commission that the buyer's agent will seek is, right? And if the seller is offering something less, then the buyer will or will not pay the difference. Okay. Now, 3 years ago, I would have told you to put shall not pay the difference. Today, it's a little grayer because there are sellers out there that are literally paying 0% commission to a buyer, right? And so I might add a little phrase in there that says shall pay the difference, just so they understand, hey, if you pursue this, and shall pay the difference of 3% or a total of 3%. Because if they pursue a home that's got 0% commission, yeah, I'm going to seek the commission from the buyer, from the buyer. Now, if they're paying like 2.5% commission, I'll probably go to the buyer and say, hey, I'll put in writing that I'm not going to seek the extra half a percent. But every once in a while, there's sellers that are literally trying to pay no money to the buyer's agent. So I'm going to just let you know about that. And then you as the consumer can decide, if I pursue this home, it's going to cost me this. If I pursue this home, it's going to cost me that. Right. So as you don't want to talk about your commission at all if you can avoid it. Right. But you don't want to make a big fuss about it. Does that make sense? Candace, you want to add anything on that?
No, I think it's going to be on a case by case basis in the relationship that you have with your buyer. And I also think that if you present it as a, if we start having to do things like that more regularly, and if you present it as part of your business, you know, there's a couple of things that I've been taught, and one of them is if you go into a listing appointment and you're like, look, it's going to be 6%. You know, that you don't feel, you're not conveying that you feel that you have the value. But if you go in and you go, well, it's 6%, that's my fee, and you're just matter of fact about it, it's like, that's the way I do business. So I think you can apply the same kind of consciousness to that, what you're talking about, Ebony, that if you start having to do that, it's just, this is the way that my business runs. Obviously, I'm in business to make money and, you know, to service you, but also I have to keep, in order to stay in business, I have to make money. So this is the way that we handle this now. And you just do it very
I
matter of
gotta
fact.
tell you, I don't think I ever brought up commission at an appointment, ever. They'd say, yeah, I'm ready to list with you. I say, great. We didn't talk about commission one single time. I put it on the paper, they signed it. I wasn't hiding it. It just, it didn't come up because I wasn't looking for something that was, you know, unusual, and they weren't looking to question it, right? So it just was on the sheet of paper, like it was not a blank, basically. Make sense? Okay.
It does, but I'm trying to stay because, you know, in a market like this, you can get burnt out, you know, and especially if you're a newer agent and, you know, you're working your way through, you know, finding out who's wasting your time and not. Why is that not kind of the same as if we both have a little skin in the game? It's like you're going to get, you know, once we close, that money is going to be a credit back to you anyway. But this is just more of making sure that you're just as committed, you know, and I know it probably would have to be on a, you know, a case by case basis, but more of just to protect yourself. In the same regards, you can still do it even on the listing end. You know what I mean? So whereas I've heard Dustin say this as well, where he's like, I think he charges like a $5.99 or $500 or $600 for an administration fee to cover whatever. So
that's on the back end.
Well, they're going to get it back on the back end. Like they're getting the money back, but it's just making sure like, what level of commitment do we have to each other in this market? Because if you're starting in this market, this can burn you out quickly and your career could be over, you know, before it begins. So I'm just saying, I don't know, like how good of a bargaining tool is that?
I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. This kind of reminds me, Candace, you probably remember this. Remember like kind of before the Zillows and all those companies really had their place, we used to have that discussion of like, how many homes should we allow the buyer to see before we lock out the search and require that they put their contact information in? Remember those discussions?
Yep.
Right. Okay. Well, they have to register before they can use my searching site, or they can see 3 homes before I force them to register before they can do more searching. Right. And if you screwed it up, they just went to a different site to search. Right. I'm not telling you not to do it, Ebony. I'm just telling you, if you're 1 or 20 out of 45,000 agents that try that, they're probably going to find somebody different. And my advice to you would be, if you're thinking that you're going to get run around, then just ask more questions and ask for more of a time commitment from them to test their seriousness out rather than a financial commitment. Right. Give them a couple of tests. Hey, go speak to this lender, then we'll chat. Right. Drive that neighborhood and tell me what you think. Right. And you'll find out how committed the person is to you. But I personally don't think I would ask for an upfront retainer fee.
And I do know people who ask for an admin fee, whether it's a buyer or a seller. But again, that's on the back end. You could potentially put something in a special stip that says, you know, I just don't know that I'm more inclined to be with Bill, that I would ask more and deeper questions before I ever got in my car to show them anything, and make sure that they were going to, I mean, if they're, you know, for instance, there are people that come on exploratory trips and you're building a relationship with them, you're not going to charge them, right? So I just have to, I'd have to I'd have to see that on a case by case basis before I would do that. But I tend to agree, and I get where you're coming from, Ebony, because man, oh man, I can't tell you the dollars of gasoline money I've burned with people that, you know, something changed. Like I can remember we were going to write a contract on a house, and I'd probably shown this person, I don't know, 80 houses over the course of several months as he came into town. And then all of a sudden he got a job in California. Just things like
Yeah,
that.
and let's just imagine that you had a stipulation in there that says, if you don't buy anything, you owe me $600. And then the guy moves to California and you're like, send me the $600. Like, how much energy and mind space and time are you going to waste chasing down somebody that to pay $600 when you should be using all that energy to go find your next consumer?
I'm just trying to learn different strategies. Like I'm getting better on vetting people out. But for that particular scenario that you said, I would have collected the money from up front. Like I'm not, like I wouldn't wait to chase it down like, oh, you're here now. It's just like, as we're signing the contract, those things are happening together. You know, before we go to the next step, it's kind of like when you're being pre-approved.
If you can get it, you can teach a class on how to get it. But I personally don't think it's a good idea.
But I'm glad you brought it up because our market is changing and we're going to be hearing more and more creative ways that agents are trying to protect themselves. So I'm very glad you brought it up because I hadn't heard that. And just
it's a much better way of responding, by the way.
No, seriously, I mean it. So I'm going to research it a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mean to give you a snappy response, Ebony. I just think it's tough. It's a tough situation. And if you are having doubts, like I remember back in the, 10 years ago when the market was terrible and there was opportunities all around and, low priced homes and lots of investors in the market. And the investors would be like, hey, I'm looking for this and this and this. I say, okay, well, let's meet. Let's have a conversation around your goals and your, how this is a part of your financial picture, and like let's get to know each other. And they're like, no, I'm just telling a bunch of realtors what I want, and if they bring it to me, then I'll work with them. I'm like, nah, peace out. I don't do that. That's not me. That's not my model. I'm going after people that are loyal to me, right? Or are willing to consider being loyal to me. Make sense? Tracy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I believe it was answered. I was going to say, is there something in when getting information, is it something that we can say? What type of conversation can we have with them to see just how serious they are? And I guess.
Oh yeah. That was actually. I'm almost there, but we're going to scan that here in 1 second. Okay, so the other conversation or the other topic that I want to have with them, ideally before I meet with them, is I just want you to understand that as a local agent, I can help you pursue any property you want to pursue. Resales, foreclosures, auctions, new construction, everything. So regardless of where you find the home, regardless, meaning like in person, driving around, on a website, whatever, regardless of where you find the home, all you have to do is just jot down the address or take a picture of it or whatever it is and get that information to me, and I'll help you get all the information you want. But understand, if you call the person whose sign is in the yard, that person is committed to representing the seller, and they're trained to ask you questions to get you to reveal things that may be used against you in the future in a negotiation. So anything that you find on your own, I'm sure you're going to be looking around, just bring it to me and I'll put it on the list and I'll get you all the answers you want, right? Because I don't want them going and calling 6 different sellers and dropping in the new construction neighborhoods and all that. I want a little bit more control around the situation, okay? All right, so now we've booked the appointment, we show up. Now, one thing, let's make one more comment about the appointment, which is you need to have an appointment. Ideally, and sometimes I know this can sometimes be hard, but ideally, we do not want to explain the importance of due diligence periods and closing costs and how to prepare and all these kind of things as we're walking around inside a home, right? They're walking up to the master bedroom and I'm like, hey, by the way, this is what a due diligence period is. They're not even listening, right? They're focused on looking at the property. So we want to set a professional tone, right? We want to bring them into an office or a Starbucks or something like that, right? If you're going to meet with somebody for the first time, by the way, please do it in a public space, right? If you have any hesitation about a person at all, or if you just want it to be your standard that anytime I am introduced to somebody or anytime I have an opportunity to consider meeting with somebody, I put them into forewarn or I Google them and see if there's anything noteworthy there, right? I got a call a few years ago from Peggy Connors, one of our top agents, and she was asked to meet a buyer, or buyer wanted to meet with her, look at a multi-million-dollar property that she had listed, and she didn't feel good about it. And she called me, she's like, what do I do? I said, give me the name. Looked up the name, dude just got out of jail for like violent sex offender crimes. Okay, so just be safe. Okay, when you're meeting with buyers, ladies, don't wear high heels. Don't park first in the driveway and let the other person park behind you, right? Park on the street. Try to let the buyer be in front of you when you're showing homes rather than like you're the one going down into the basement first, right? You might consider things like a gun or mace or something sharp or something like that. I'm not trying to freak you out. I'm just asking you to consider to be prepared. Okay. Unfortunately, there have been times where agents have had situations that possibly could have been avoided.
I carry a stun gun that has a flashlight on it and a little wristband. So I can, if I pull the wristband off, it's a siren. And if I can use it as a flashlight without, scaring anybody. But if I needed to, God willing, I never need to, I just touched it to the person and they're down for 3 minutes, which gives you time to get away. And I just wanted to say on a note other than safety, don't have your buyer consultation in one of the homes that you're going to see because there's too many listening devices, Alexas, smart TVs now, cell phones. So do your consultation either in the office or meet at a Starbucks or someplace like that beforehand before you go to the first home if this is your first meeting with somebody.
Great point. And that also goes, of course, for any type of like strategy discussion, right? So if, let's say I'm the buyer's agent and Anthony's my buyer and Anthony's going through the home and he's like, oh my gosh, this is the one, like, do you think they'll take this? Oh my gosh, I can pay closing costs, but let's ask them anyway, right? I read a statistic the other day that said 90% of homes right now have some form of either audio recording going on or video recording going on or both, right? Handle your strategy sessions outside of the home. Okay, make sense? Okay, cool.
And just to piggyback, let somebody know where you're going too. If you don't, like you said, if you don't feel secure, that's another option. You can call another agent and say, hey, I'm going to show this house at such and such. If you don't hear back from me by, a half hour later, just kind of inquire or something like that. It's just another way to look out for each other.
Exactly. And you can have some kind of code that, like, let's say I'm at a home and I'm feeling scared or something, then I could call the office or something and say like, hey, I need the red folder for 123 Hill Street. That means like call the cops and tell them to go to 123 Hill Street or something, right? So like you can have like a safety system set up like that.
Yeah, it used to be when I did buyer consultations that when I met with them to, go through the small presentation, I always started with, I know you're here to see homes. I know we got to get to that. There's a couple of things I want to go over first. Can I have your permission to do that? And they'd say, yeah. And then I'd say, we'd go through that. And then I'd say, no, there's one more thing before we go see homes. It's my broker's policy that I have to send them a copy of your driver's license just for safety, everybody's safety. And I'd shoot a text of it and send it to the broker and then, or send it to my husband or somebody. And the other thing I'd do is I'd make sure my husband had the same itinerary that I was supposed to follow with my clients that day.
I got a great idea of how that can happen. A shared calendar.
Oh, there you go. Look at you.
Shared calendar.
The calendar king. I love that.
Right. All right. Okay. So now we've booked the appointment. We freaked everyone out. Right. And I'm not trying to freak you guys out. This is the reality of being a business professional. I mean, listen, we were all raised saying, don't talk to strangers. I'm I'm coaching you to do the exact opposite, right? So you gotta make sure you're being safe, all right, and prepared. So now we've shown up at the appointment. Many times, we are at the very beginning, as early as possible, we want to just, again, express our gratitude, right? I understand there's a lot of real estate agents that could have the opportunity to be meeting with you today. And I just want to express my gratitude for the privilege of being here, and being considered to be an advisor for you and an agent for you in this process, right? Super important. I'm just very, very grateful, and I don't want that to go unsaid, right? There's a lot of questions. I'm going to scan through this, the buyer intake sheet. The buyer intake sheet is in the Google page or Google Drive. And it asks questions like, how soon do you need to be there? Right? How long have you been seriously looking? I'll download this and pop it in the thing. Have you seen any homes or areas that you really like? What's important to you about buying a home right now? Right? That'll tell you their motivation pretty good. Maybe not their motivation, but the intensity of their motivation, if that makes sense. Right? Hey, I just got married and I'm still in my parents' basement. I have a very strong desire to buy a home. Or it could be the exact opposite. Hey, I'm a single guy and I'm living for free in my parents' basement. And the longer I live here for free, the more fun I can have. Don't appear to be all that motivated. See what I'm saying? Have you met with another buyer's agent, or are you currently interviewing agents, right? How much money do you have set aside for down payment and closing costs? Remember, there's a very good chance that the buyer is going to have to pay closing cost for their transaction, right? So we want to make sure that they have those funds available, right? Have you started working with a mortgage lender? And I know this insinuates, by the way, that I'm willing to meet with them before. And the truth of the matter is, I probably am. This is about relationship building, okay? So I'm going to err more on the side of I want to get in your presence, because the second I get in your presence, the relationship changes. Okay. Now you've essentially given me permission to follow up with you for the rest of your life. You will be on my call list until one of us dies. I'm serious. Make sense? So I'm in the business of building those relationships, whether they buy in a month or 6 years, I don't actually care that much. I just want to get in your presence. Once you see me and you hang out with me and you see how I operate, you're going to want to do business with me. Okay. Have you already started working with a mortgage lender? So then you find out, what type of loan they might get, or if they've done that, or what their credit situation might be like, these kind of things. Do you have a home that you need to sell before you buy? Are you currently leasing a property, right? And if so, when's the expiration date of that lease? Okay, hang on, I'm gonna scan it in right now. Besides you guys or are there any other decision makers that are involved in the process? That's when you'll find out that, like, the aunt in Chattanooga is going to have to approve the process, or the uncle in Denver is going to have to approve the process, or the stepfather's writing a big check and he wants to double check everything, right? So you need to figure out who's involved other than the person that you might be sitting in front of, right? Now, tell me briefly what you're looking for, right? So you're jotting down things, and when you hear what they say, you want to try to figure out why they're saying it, right? So if they say, I want a big backyard, first of all, you need to ask a clarifying question, right? So a big backyard might mean different things to different people. Can you share with me what a big backyard means to you? Right? And they'll say, well, it needs to be at least 4 acres. That would be a freaking gigantic yard to me, right? But Melody, who grew up on a 200-acre farm, would think that is nothing. You see what I'm saying? So we need to figure out the person's clarifying, right? I want a home where I can do a lot of entertaining. Okay, so that sounds like fun. Tell me a little bit about what would I need to be looking for in the home to understand that it is a great home for entertaining or not a great home for entertaining, right? And they might say, well, I want the family room to open up to the kitchen, or I want there to be high ceilings, right? It could be anything to anyone. So you just got to get some more clarity there. Candace, looked like you were moving up for the mute button. Okay. Okay, the one thing that we kind of skipped a tiny bit, which I want to come back to, is much like the seller consultation. We want to start off kind of somewhat 10,000 foot view if you want, right? So tell me a little bit about what is the most important thing that needs to happen in this transaction for you to feel like you're having a 10 plus experience, right? And just listen to whatever they say. Oh, well, I really want somebody who's going to, really hold my hand through the contracts. Great. Don't forget, you're going to have a lot of clients, and every client's going to have different specific desires. And you need to remember that when I'm talking to Tracy, I need to slow it down a little bit and make sure she's real confident around the contract, right? Here are the contingencies. There's this deadline. Here's what's going to happen next. Here's why that's written that way. Here's why that's filled in that way, right? You need to spend a little bit more time with the things she's got a little thing about, right? If you don't understand that, or you don't ask good enough questions to reveal that Tracy has some apprehension around the contracts, then you most likely will not meet her needs. You see what I'm saying? What are the non-negotiables, right? What do you absolutely have to have in the home, right? And they might say, well, I need 3 bathrooms. Okay, so is 2.5 okay? No, I need 3 bathrooms minimum. Okay, so the perfect home comes out, but it's got 2 or 2.5 bathrooms. Is it okay? Nope. Okay, great. So I'm never going to show you a home, less than 3 bathrooms. Right? Great. Okay, I've got to be in Northview High School District. Okay, perfect home comes around. It's not in Northview High School District. You don't want to see it, right? Yes, that's correct. Right, and you're reconfirming all these things. And they tell you, a couple more, you ask the same questions. You say, so what are some of your preferences? Right, well, I prefer to be in a cul-de-sac. Okay, so if we found the perfect home and it wasn't in a cul-de-sac, would that be acceptable? Yes. All right, great. So it's a preference, not a need, or a preference, not a requirement, right? Or they might say, well, I need to have a basement. I'd prefer that it was finished. Okay, so the perfect home comes around, no basement, you don't want to see it, right? Yes, great. And ultimately what you're doing here is you are, the point of these questions is to save them time. Look, I'd rather ask you 5 questions to find out that 5 homes are not a match rather than drive all over town and sit in traffic with you for you to tell me they're not a match, right? I was in a bold room 9 years ago, and the instructor, and I totally dismissed this when I heard it. And as time went on, I realized how right he was. And he said, if you show more than 5 homes to a buyer, one of 2 things is happening. 1, you don't know the market good enough. How's that feel? What does that tell you? Right.
Yeah, Bill, can I share a quick story? Some of you have heard this story, but when my husband and I were a team in real estate, my husband is high D and high S, and he would do his preparation, and he would say to the people, he'd say, I'm going to show you 3 homes today. You're going to buy the first one, but I'm showing you the other 2 for comparison. So he'd start his day at about 10 o'clock. He'd get his 3 homes ready to go. He'd researched them the day before, did a lot of work on the intake form with the buyers. And then he would show them the first home, which they often ended up buying. And then he'd show them 2 others for comparison. And he'd be home by about 1 o'clock. and he'd be writing the offer up about, 1:30, 2 o'clock, and he'd be finished by about 4 o'clock with his day. And my day was such that I was like, oh, I wasn't that direct. And so I've gotten that direct, but I learned from him. But I would be home. He'd call me finally around 8:30 at night and go, are you almost going to be home? And I'd like, oh, I've got 2 more homes to show. So I'll be home probably about 10 o'clock. I learned very quickly his way was a lot better. So I did my preparation on the front end, from 9 to 10. And I really looked at the pictures online. I really called the agent, made sure everything was going on. And then my days got a lot more manageable like his. So just words of experience.
Now, my only caution with what Candace and I have just said is the inventory is at historic lows right now, right? So you don't want to like get them to like to the nth degree and then say, sorry, that home doesn't exist, right? You got to kind of find the middle ground there, right? But for example, if you leave the buyer consult, this is a great way to determine whether you've been thorough enough. You leave the buyer consultation and you go plug in their criteria, right? I need a minimum of 3 beds. I need a minimum of 2.5 baths. I need to be in this school district with this price, and there's 60 choices. You haven't asked enough questions. That's a good way to put it. Okay. Now, so he said, if you show more than 5 homes to someone, one of two things has happened. Either you don't know the market well enough, or you haven't asked them enough questions. It's that simple. It's that simple. And every home that somebody goes to, I want you to ask them. Marie Burgess taught me this many years ago. She says, I asked every single home that I took a buyer to, I said, you want to buy this? And they either said yes, and it was time to write up the offer, or they said no. And Marie would say, can you share with me why? Right? And they said, well, the family room is too small. Okay, great. So what about the family room is too small? And she'd get a little bit more information. And then she would never show them a home that had a family room that was like that, right? So she either sold them the home that they looked at, or she figured out why it was not the right home, and then used that knowledge to avoid wasting their time in the future. Make sense? Now, the next question I'll highlight, because I know I've spoken to a few of you about this individually, is when somebody says, I'm not really sure if I want to live in McDonough or Duluth or Cartersville or Tucker. I'm trying to figure that out. I don't want to hang out with you too much until you figure it out, right? You need to go do some driving around and some research and, go into the restaurants and sitting in traffic and seeing what the commute times are like and going to the coffee shops and staking out the neighborhoods and all that kind of stuff to figure out, look, there couldn't be much difference between those 4 places. Like, you need to do a little bit more homework before we spend a lot of time together. You agree with that, Candace? Right. Slightly differently if somebody's coming in from out of town, these kind of things. But you can encourage them to, you can send them some resources, right? Here's the DeKalb County website. Here's the City of Duluth website. Here is the school district ratings. Here is some, traffic patterns or whatever. And you tell me prior to getting into town whether this is should be on the radar or not. Make sense? Because somebody that doesn't know anything about Atlanta is like, Duluth, McDonough, Powder Springs, they're all kind of close to Atlanta, right? I mean, it couldn't be any further from the truth, right? Okay. Another question that you want to ask your, any questions so far, by the way? Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If you have your hand up and you've had your question addressed, take it down so I know that you don't have any more questions. And then when you raise it again, I'll know it's a new thing. All right, go ahead, Tracy.
Okay, so once you've done an intake, right, with the buyer, and is it okay to go back and be specific about certain questions that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's a good example. I put in the information they give me. I get 60 responses. There's 60 matches. I call them and I say, hey, listen, there's a couple more questions I want to ask you. Right. so we can save you time and look at the best properties. Just ask them again. Now likely there may be a time where you have to review the buyer consultation midway through the process, right? So like an example of that, like I was working with somebody who wanted to be in Marietta, and she calls me one morning. She says, "Oh my gosh, look at this property. It looks like such a deal, and it's in Canton." I said, "Wait a second. I thought you needed to be in Marietta." And she said, "Well, it's such a deal. It's such a deal." I said, wait a second. Are we buying a home or are we buying a deal? Okay. So I want you to wake up at whatever time is necessary for you to leave work or leave your house, imaginary house in Canton, and drive down to Smyrna where you actually work. And you tell me if you want to live in Canton. And if you do, we'll expand our search. But we're not just looking at random homes in random places because you're bored. You see what I'm saying? Candace, you got
I was just thinking, that's probably not the script you want to say to them.
I'll say the raw script. Candace, polish it up for me.
My script is, let's consider this really carefully. Some of the things you've identified for me is that your commute time is really, really important to you and that you want more time with your family. And this home, while it's got so many things that you love about it, probably isn't going to afford you that thing that you told me was your number one priority. Why don't you rethink that? And let's look at some other homes. There'll be more homes coming on the market shortly.
That
That's the
was so
script.
good, wasn't it? That was really good. Really good. That's exactly what you get with practice, right? She said that 100 times, probably more. So that's how important wording is. You know, it's also important to understand. I'll end on this idea. I mean, we could talk about buyers all day. You want to make sure that you have a real clear understanding of what their financing situation is prior to spending a ton of time with them, right? Because they may have, and this is the unfortunate part of this, where we're at right now in the market, is it's very likely that somebody's spent the last couple years saving up for their, 3.5% down payment to get an FHA loan, and now they call up Melissa and say, "Oh, Melissa, I'm finally ready to buy a home." And then Melissa says, "Well, by the way, nobody paying closing costs these days, so that'll be another $10,000 in money that you'll need to bring to the table. I assume that's okay, right?" And then all of a sudden their dreams just disappear, right? And so you got to remember that a lot of this is very sensitive sometimes, right? Our job is just to help them understand what the situation in the marketplace is, what the realities of the marketplace is, and how important it is to partner with trustworthy partners, right? So you want to have a good idea of what are the closing costs likely to be with this price range that we're discussing and the type of loan that you're intending to get. Because I might show you the home and you want to pursue it. I need to know those answers quickly, right? One thing Candace said earlier is give them permission to move forward with the home when they see it. Say, "Hey, I'm going to ask you a lot of questions now so I can save you a lot of time later. And because I know the market really well, and because I'm going to be really thorough asking you questions, don't be surprised if I take you right to the winner," right? Don't be surprised if I take you to the best house. And I've used that with the line that your husband used, Candace, before. We say, "Look, I'm going to take you to the best home first, just so you know. And the second home we look at, it's not going to be as good. And the third home we look at, it's not going to be as good," right? And then by like the third home, they're like, "Yeah, okay, let's go back to the first home and write it up," right? It's like I told you, right? I never did that. I did it like once or twice, but for the most part, what I did is I just kind of geographically went around. Okay, this house is closest to this house. We'll go to this house first, and this house, and this house, and this house. And I'd usually start in the direction of where I was coming from and end in the direction of where I was going, rather than like strategically like cross all over town, trying to show them like the best home first, or the biggest home first, or the most expensive home first, or any of that kind of thing. Again, tons of different techniques. Yes, Tracy.
One question. So do you have somewhere in the Google Docs, like a map of Georgia, of the cities?
Best thing for that would just be Google Drive or Google Maps, really.
Okay.
What was there a specific?
Oh, no,
thought you
just
had?
in general, like I just for my own personal.
Oh,
No.
I would, are you, not to put you on the spot here, but are you relatively familiar with the geography of Atlanta or not so much?
Not so much.
That is one of your chief jobs right now, is you should say to yourself, I am working in Roswell, so I need to know Roswell, right? And so I'm going to Google map a map of Roswell. I'm going to print it out, and I mean, I'm going to be pretty blunt here. You should drive up and down every single road, right?
Mhm.
Where's the highway? Where are the restaurants? Where's the schools? Where's the parks? Where's the shopping? Where's the coffee shops, right? How do I get from here to there, right? And, okay, so on the east side of Roswell, we tend to have homes that are like this age or this price or this size or whatever. And on the west side of Roswell or the highway, this is what we tend to find. And, where are the townhomes? Okay, the townhomes are generally up here, right? And then you might say to yourself, I'm going to figure out Roswell this week. There ain't going to be nobody that knows Roswell better than me by the end of this week, right? So I'm going to go look at 10 properties today in Roswell priced between 250 and 400. And tomorrow I'm going to look at 10 more that are priced from 400 to 500. And the next day I'm going to look at 10 more that are priced from 500 to 700, right? And I'm going to go in and out of all these neighborhoods, and I'm going to know where they are and how to get to them from all the different places in Roswell. And then you're going to know, right? I mean, if I was a buyer, I never put buyers in my car, but I always drove my own car and let them follow me. And like, if I'm using my GPS for everything, they might be like, hey, does this guy know how to get on the highway? I thought he was the expert around here. Why does he got to look everything up? You see what I'm saying?
Well,
Yeah.
and then
one more thing, and I maybe I created some controversy here. The next thing I would say is, if you're going to work in Alpharetta, do the same thing in Alpharetta. If you're going to work in Smyrna or Dunwoody or Dorville or West End or wherever, right? Figure out the areas that you have some desire to work in, or that your prospects tend to be asking about, and get intentional about how to learn the market, right?
And I was just going to say, in the old days when we had more homes on the market, we used to do caravans after the team meeting where we'd go visit each other's listings, and there would be food and giveaways and things like that. But you could certainly get together with a group of people in PC who want to go preview neighborhoods and homes after the meeting, and have one of you responsible each week for setting up the showings, and then a group of you go and preview those homes.
That's a great idea. Great idea. Ebony, did you want to say something?
Yeah, there's a great map at the FMLS store. I have it hanging on my wall. So that way it's just like, it's familiar. I get familiarized by area, even though they stopped doing, area searches. Is good still just to know different areas, but you can look at it on a more broader level to say, okay, well, this is over here, but it's like $15 to get that map.
Yeah. I would spend, I mean, I'm kind of a little bit of a dork when it comes to maps, but I would do, this is Google Maps right here. And so this shows me, basically where we are, right? We're right here. So I would say, I think I'll take this route home from work. Let's see where Highway 9 goes. Okay, so today I'm going to take Highway 9 across the river, and tomorrow I might go this way because that's how to get to East Cobb. Oh, here's a neighborhood I'm not so familiar with. Let me drive around this neighborhood. Let me pop onto the KW app or whatever and see, hey, what are homes priced at like in this area, right? Are they old? Are they new? Are they big? Are they small, right? Say, oh my gosh, here is the Chattahoochee Nature Center. I bet that would be pretty. Let's go down there. Hey, maybe while you're there, you could say, hey, I was in, up in North Fulton today, and I decided to pop in and, here, this is a better example. Morgan Falls, there's a really cool park over here. If you guys have ever been over here, my wife takes some pictures every once in a while over here. A family's because it's got a really cool scenery, right? And there's like a little golf course over here and a really, really pretty park. And you could just go on Facebook and say, hey, you know, I'm in the area looking at properties today in Sandy Springs. And gosh, I don't know if you guys know this, but take a look at this park, right? Look at these cool, you know, this cool art or this cool, you know, view or whatever. And just let people know that let people know that you are in real estate and you're committed to learning the market and sharing cool things about the community, right? Or various communities. Right? Where are the churches? How do you get on the highway? Right? What are the back roads? All these kind of things. Where are the hospitals? Like this is basically what they call Pill Hill right here, right? Over here is where like the stadium is, right? Y'all follow what I'm saying? This is part of the spend part of your day getting smarter and spending part of your day meeting people. Every day you got to learn something new, right? I mean, is it not, would it not be crazy if I was showing, let's say, Candace properties in Midtown? And I mean, there's a ton of stuff going on in Midtown right now, right? If Candace says, hey, well, what's that neighborhood? Or what building is that? And I was like, I don't really know, right? Or, you know, you guys know this new West Side Park. This is considerably bigger than Piedmont Park and Chastain Park, by the way, right? A lot of cool stuff happening over here, right? Beltline's pretty close to this. If you don't know anything about the Beltline, hell, you're a realtor in Atlanta. You better figure it out. If somebody's like, hey, I want to live near the Beltline, you're like, what's the Beltline? They're like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. Do you have any other realtors that you happen to know that know what the Beltline is? Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. Was today helpful? Any questions, complaints, feedback? All right. Remember that those that are in bold are tasked with speaking to 20 people each day. So why don't we make that our goal today? Why don't you make sure you talk to 20 human beings about real estate today? All right. Have a wonderful day.